Can you imagine a WWII title being released today that was a World War II shooter? World War II shooters were the most popular genre back on the PS2, and I remember really enjoying them. Due to just how many there were on the market back then, when Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare was released, the gaming industry took the opportunity to leave the World War II shooters behind, and they never looked back. It really was that clear cut. Modern Warfare came out and everyone started using the modern setting for FPSs, meaning no more World War II games came out. There was Call of Duty World at War, but that was about it. One of the biggest World War II franchises was Medal of Honor. They were pretty good games, but completely vanished once the modern FPS fad hit, and was never seen again until the disappointing reboot in 2010. While many people remember Frontline, Allied Assault or Rising Sun, it turns out that 3 Medal of Honor games came out in the same year that Modern Warfare did. There was Medal of Honor Vanguard, Medal of Honor Airborne, and Medal of Honor Heroes 2. Heroes 2 was the last one to come out, so in this video I'll be taking a look to see whether or not the Medal of Honor games were still riding high at the end, or if Heroes 2 is a very good example of why nobody cares about World War II shooters anymore. The story is that you play an American soldier called John Burke who is deployed in France during World War II. John is a fictional character, but the game is based on a real-life battle called the Battle of Cherbourg, which took place shortly after the Normandy landings. There aren't any cutscenes, instead you get mission briefings before each level explaining what you're doing. The story, or at least the way it's handled, is pretty appalling. While anyone still at school might be sick of hearing the history of World War II, it was a major event in human histories, and a lot of things took place during that period. Heroes 2, however, doesn't bother to go into any details or do anything interesting with the subject matter. There's only one character, the guy you play as, and you don't speak a single word of dialogue. You would have thought after the TV show Band of Brothers, World War II games would have followed its example and have character-driven stories to show what the soldiers went through, but instead you're just some guy killing Nazis and that's it. The game is called Heroes 2. Doesn't that imply that the story should be about the heroes of World War II, rather than some nameless made-up soldier? Heroes 2 is a World War II FPS, so the gameplay is exactly what you would expect. You run around and gun down Nazis. With this game being on the Wii, you don't have dual analog controls, so instead you use the stick to move and the Wii pointer to look around and aim. The core movement controls work well, and maybe it's because I've played a lot of Wii FPSs, but I never had any problems using them. With that said, there are still control issues thanks to how everything else works. There are motion controls everywhere in this game, and while some of them are pretty cool, such as holding the Wiimote on your soldier to aim the rocket launcher, most of them feel very unnecessary. At certain points you have to tune into the correct frequency on a radio to get your orders, but to do this you have to tilt the Wiimote, and it just doesn't work well. There's also a level where you have to use artillery to bomb the enemy's artillery, but to turn the artillery around and aim correctly, you have to spin the nunchuck in a circle, which is very annoying to do. The ideas aren't horrible, but they don't add much to the experience, feel very forced, and can make things more frustrating than they should be. The controls feel awkward in general, as you have to use the D-pad way too much, as up is reload, left and right is to change weapons, and down is crouch. Using the D-pad so much just doesn't feel natural. While the controls could be better, they aren't the game's biggest problem. The biggest problem is that it's just very boring to play. If you play another World War II shooter like Call of Duty World at War, you'll be using flamethrowers to burn enemies out of trees, assaulting bases with tanks, and using stealth to get past enemies. All these things add variety to keep you interested, but Heroes 2 is the same throughout. You're just shooting at Nazis and that's it. It becomes very repetitive, and it doesn't help with just how many Nazis there are. You will kill a couple hiding behind cover, only to have 2 more instantly spawn in. The very few attempts to mix up the gameplay all fall flat, with the main ones being using mortars, machine gun turrets and artillery, but as already stated, they're not fun because of the Wii controls. There are 2 points in the game though where you're given a mine detector and you have to find your way through a minefield. You can't see where the mines are, so instead the Wiimote vibrates if you get close to one. These sections are terrible, as it's very hard to get a sense of where the mines actually are, and if you try and sense it slow, you'll likely be blown up by a mine that was behind you. The lack of variety ultimately means you have no real reason to keep playing this game, as the story is almost non-existent, and all you do is shoot Nazis, so you most likely will just give up on playing this game before the end, even though it's only 4 hours long. The gameplay being repetitive might have been bearable if it wasn't for the technical problems this game has. The enemy AI is extremely basic, so they only have two modes, running to a new location and shooting. On the face of it, this doesn't sound like a problem, but it means that when an enemy sees you, they will constantly shoot at your location. They are pinpoint accurate, and when you're in an area where several enemies spawn in, see you and shoot at you like robots, it's impossible not to get shot, taking away some of the skill. The health system is the same as Modern Warfare, where you can only take a certain number of bullets, but you can regenerate your health if you stop getting shot. This should be a good thing, but the mix of the health and the AI makes the gameplay very slow paced. It's hard to know how many hits you can take, which means that you will be killed almost randomly sometimes, so you have to be very careful. It kills the pace and the tension of almost every gunfight, as you have to keep an eye out for the large amount of enemies that could just spawn in randomly and kill you in seconds. Call of Duty works because it's fast paced and the regenerating health is a part of that, but here it doesn't work. The game doesn't even have a sprint button, so you can't even make tactical breaks into different covers. You just have to shoot a couple of people, wait for your health to come back, and repeat. Heroes 2 is a Wii title, so of course it can't compare to HD games, but Heroes 2 looks bad for a Wii game. I know it must be difficult to go for realistic graphics on the Wii, but this game is just horrible to look at. It's set in war-torn France, which would have been a grim place, but everything here looks so bland and uninspired. Everything looks and just feels arcadey, which for a game set in one of the largest human conflicts of all time is not the correct tone. The terrible repetitive gameplay does suit the terrible bland graphics though, so I guess it's not all bad. I would like to talk about the music of the game, but there isn't any. Whenever you accomplish an objective, a short victory jingle plays, but that's it. Having no music in a war game can work, but because of the awful sound design, most of the time you're hearing silence or the same gun sounds over and over. There is voice acting during battles as well, but as you would expect, it's more hilarious than good. There are two extra modes outside of the campaign. The first is the arcade mode, which takes you through the same levels as the campaign, but turns them into an on-rail shooter. It's a nice idea, but the last thing the gameplay needed was a stripped-down version of it. You might have some mindless fun in arcade mode, but I doubt it, as there's no co-op mode, and this mode was purely created for the Wii Sapper. The biggest appeal of this game when it was first released was the online multiplayer. Playing online was becoming very popular, so Heroes 2 was the Wii's answer to Halo, as it featured 32-player online. It's the reason I was interested in it when it first came out, and I would tell you how good the online is, but the servers of the game were shut down in 2011. Essentially, this means the game's biggest feature can't be accessed and can never be taken advantage of again. From what I can tell though, it isn't anything special and certainly was no competition for the Call of Duty games. Medal of Honor Heroes 2 is a game that gets everything wrong. It doesn't integrate the Wii controls as badly as other games, but the gameplay is horrible, the graphics are bad, and there's nothing here that makes it worth playing over other first-person shooters. Maybe I'm being too harsh on it because I played it in 2013, as there's nothing really broken in the game, but it still feels very dull and pointless. The online multiplayer might have made up for the poorly put together campaign, but I reviewed the game I brought and the online multiplayer is no longer part of this game. My score is 2.5 out of 10. If you desperately crave a World War II FPS, then you might get some enjoyment from Heroes 2, but if you want a well-made fun game, then this isn't it.